In recent years, retro formats have become a staple in the Yu-Gi-Oh landscape. Thanks to the introduction of Ultimate Time Wizard events, GOATs, Tengu, and most notably Edison format have skyrocketed in popularity. We even see some other formats get recognition by Konami via side events at YCSs like 2014 Hat format or 2019 Toss format, but are these the best formats in Yu-Gi-Oh's history? Though some of these formats can make that claim, I'm going to be letting you guys in on one of Retro Yu-Gi-Oh's best kept secrets. A format with tons of diversity, skill expression, and consistent decks. I introduce to you guys the greatest format you've probably never heard of, September 2012. For many, 2012 marked a dark period in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, as prior to the September 2012 ban list, decks like Windup could loop your entire hand, the resolution of a Future Fusion ended on an insane board with recursive ability with Red Eye's Darkness Metal and Light Pulsar Dragon, and Inzectors had a 2-card combo that pretty much popped most of your board. However, September 2012's ban list changed a lot of this. Some of the major changes include the banning of Future Fusion, powerful cards like Inzector Dragonfly, Inzector Hornet, Red Eye's Darkness Metal Dragon, and Windup Carrier Zenmighty all being limited to 1, and even quality of life changes like Rescue Rabbit and Tour Guide from the Underworld were semi-limited. Between nerfing the 4 best decks of the format and the recent release of the newest set at the time, Return of the Duelist, the state of the game was about to be blown wide open. Shown on the screen are some of the many deck lists that topped YCSs during this format. Unfortunately, I'm not able to display all the different types of decks that topped, as there are just way too many. Over the course of September 2012 format, there's 4 different YCSs that had occurred. Those include YCS Toronto, YCS Guatemala, YCS Indianapolis, and YCS Providence, all of which had bare minimum of 9 different decks in their top cut, most of them a lot more than that, and each one sporting a different winner. The first YCS of September 2012 format was YCS Toronto, and Josh Graham was able to take it down with a wind-up strategy. One of the things I really like about the wind-up deck at this time is it no longer can hand loop, but it was still a very consistent deck that surprisingly actually really liked to play the grind game with its opponent. Also, with Zenmighty now at 1, the deck just became a lot more tame in what it could do. Honestly, the most unfair thing it could do would be if you drew Magician with Shark, you could turn 1 Shockmaster. However, with the spread of spells, traps, and monsters that exist in this format, that oftentimes wasn't even game ending. I think one of the things I like most about this format is the spread of traps that decks played, and some of the best traps in the game were all at 2 during this format, like Bottomless, Torrent, Mirror Force, and Solemn Warning. Another thing I like about this format is it's in an era when XYZs weren't crazy powerful yet, but there's definitely unique answers to a lot of different things. And though I like windups a lot, it wasn't even the coolest deck in the finals of this event. Surprisingly, Jeff Jones made a homebrew Psychic deck with the release of Grand Soil, the Elemental Lord, as well as Emergency Teleport being unlimited on the ban list. He made a really awesome deck that utilized different types of Psychic monsters to make awesome synchro plays while netting advantage, and even using cards like Miracle Synchro Fusion to their fullest potential. Following YCS Toronto, we had YCS Guatemala, where Angel Flores won his 3rd YCS playing Hero Beat, and it is literally just a tried and true Hero Beat deck, even opting to play some anti-meta options like Neospatian Grand Mole, Thunder King Ryo, and Fossil Dyna in the main deck. One of the things I really like about the Hero Beat deck is it was just really solid control deck at this time and could utilize Super Poly really well, because at this point in time they also had so many different attributes for hero monsters. Another thing that's really interesting that I noticed is the side deck has to cover a lot of different decks due to how diverse the meta was. That's why we see things like System Down and Cyber Dragon for machine hate like Gear Gia. We also see Banisher for graveyard strategies, Max C, Valor and Threatening for combo strategies, even the Gemini Imps for Dark World. Yeah, it's just coverage all across the board, and you had to be really unique with how you side decked. 2 weeks after YCS Guatemala, we had YCS Indianapolis that was won by Junior Dorson playing 6 Samurais. With Gateway at 1, 6 Samurais were definitely past their heyday, However, with the introduction of the Six Samurai structure deck just a few months prior, they did get a little bit of a boost here. And I mean, in this format, Six Sams don't really have that many bad matchups and have generically good coverage. I also like the introduction of compulsory in the main deck here, as it was a good way to answer established boards. Another one of the decks I wanted to touch on from this event was Billy Brake's top 8 Inzektor deck. What was so cool about this deck was that it used cards like Card Trooper and Mystic Tomato to tutor out your one of Inzektor Hornet or Inzektor Dragonfly. Especially getting Dragonfly to field was still extremely powerful at this point in time. He also utilized Triple Call the Haunted. That way, if he were to mill it with his Trooper or send it to grave via Foolish Burial, he would still have access to it that way as well. And basically the goal was to just have an Inzektor on board every single turn to continuously generate advantage while also using cards like Ladybug to make rank 4, 5, and 6 XYZs. I'll also be the first to admit that I'm probably biased because Inzektors are one of my favorite archetypes of all time. Putting that aside, we have the final YCS of the format that occurred at YCS Providence in October of 2012, and it was taken down by Yugioh Karakuri by Chris LeBlanc. This was his first YCS win, and it had the newest strategy from Return of the Duelist, which was the Yugioh cards, but he morphed it with Karakuri's, which was kind of popular at this time because it gave the deck a crazy ceiling by being able to use the Karakuri synchros that spammed more monsters to the board, and you can use cards like Karakuri Beret to flip your armors back face up, triggering their effects yet again after using their effects to book themselves face down. It allowed for some crazy combos, while also being able to tutor the main deck via Yugioh Armor and Gigant X. This deck is definitely one of the better decks of the format, but not without its shortcomings, as cards like System Down and Cyber Dragon were running rampant in everyone's extra deck, and other decks kind of hard took this deck out, like Dark Worlds and Inzektors. So as you can see, September 2012 was an incredibly diverse format, but diversity doesn't make a format good necessarily. I do think it's important for its long-standingness in a retro community, as it helps the game not get stale. But one of the things I think is also super important is how consistent the decks are in this format versus, let's say, even Tengu format a year prior. Access to the main deck via main deck monsters, spell cards, as well as extra deck monsters was higher than ever. This led to more games where you had to outplay your opponent and less games where someone just bricks and gets absolutely destroyed. I truly believe the consistency issue is one of the big gripes I have with a lot of different retro formats. Akin to many other retro formats, 2012 often gets to this grind game sort of state where whoever's playing their resources better tends to win. I can't really do it justice without showing you guys actual gameplay, but if you guys are intrigued whatsoever with September 2012 format, I encourage you guys to give it a try. And if you guys have interest, I will definitely do more content, as I absolutely love this format. You guys can do me a solid and like the video and leave a comment about what deck in 2012 interests you the most. It would be greatly appreciated. Until next time, peace out, my Meta Pros.